Django application that's using forms. And we're only going to use a part of forms for this particular video. In some of the upcoming videos, we're going to be doing more and more stuff with these forms. But I just wanted to take you all through the build process just so you can kind of see how it works and see how all the files fit together. So at this point, we should be pretty comfortable with all the Django admin, start app project, whatever product name, make a directory for apps, touch that init file, make yourself a new app in there, get out the settings set up, yada yada. But I'm going to do it. All right, so Django admin. I'm going to mutter to myself because you guys don't need to see this, but so cd apps, touch init. Then we're going to go up and go Python / manage py, and then start app and form test. Cool. And then cd.ls atom dot. At this point, we should be good to get our project up and running. And I'm going to copy some stuff from the platform as well to make things a little bit faster. But I did want to show you guys kind of the overall setup. So settings.py, we want to say, hey, go get our form. So usual stuff. So apps.form test, comma. All right, so there's that part. Great. URLs. We know how to use admin now, so we don't have to get rid of it anymore. I just didn't want people to get confused with multiple routes at the beginning before we kind of understood what was going on. So base route. And again, you could have made this thing like users or something. But in this case, we're just going to make it the base route and get it. Include apps.form test.urls. And we need to have include up here. Perfect. So let's just grab this stuff. And then go over to our apps. Form test. New file. urls.py. We don't need that. And we do need URL patterns equals this thing and URL. And we're just going to do a blank core base URL. So start of string, end of string, views.index. Name equals index, since we know how to use named routes as well now. Great. So there's that. Obviously, we're going to access this views. We need to have from dot import views. And good. All right, so now we need to do a couple things in our views. So our views, we need to make our def index. And we're going to take the request object. And then we're going to return and render a template. And we're going to return and render that guy, request object. So we're going to be able to pass that around. And then we're going to go into templates and then go to form test and then index.html. And we're going to pass over a context dictionary. Great. So we haven't built the form yet, but it's pretty easy. So I'm just going to say form, this variable, equals, let's call this thing registration form. We haven't declared this variable yet, and this variable is actually going to be a class invocation. So form is going to be an instance of this class. All right. So we've got that potentially coming. And then we need to have a context dictionary. And we're going to say my registration form as the key. My registration form is going to be a class, and it's going to be an instance of that form. So we're just going to be passing this instance to here, which is going to go to there, which is eventually going to our index.html location. So let's make our index.html. New file, templates / first, our form test, and then index.html. Cool, there's our index.html. And we're going to make it super simple. We're going to have a form, and it's going to have a class. Nah, we don't care what the class is. It's action. We're just going to send it back to the home page for now. We're going to have a CSRF token in it. And normally what we'd be doing at this point is being like, okay, so we're going to have these 7 or 8 different input fields for a registration form, but we're not going to do that. We're just going to pass in and use that form element that we got over from our views. So it came over as my registration form, and we're just going to somehow magically get this thing to print out. So it's not really that magical, but there's our index form. Inside of our form, we also need to have one input field, which is going to be the submit button value equals register, since we're making this fake registration form. All right. Excellent. So here's what's gone on so far. And we haven't actually built everything out yet, but we have our URLs. We went to the blank URL after we went to the main URLs. We load this views.index as index. Those views run index. It creates this form class instance, so this registration form instance, and then we pass that thing over through the context dictionary as my registration form. Whatever that thing is, the invoked instance of it, comes over, shows up right here. So let's just change this action from that to URL quote index, right? So this is a named route. We can now access it by that. Cool. All right, so now making the form. So forms are usually kept in their own file, just like URLs are kept in their own file, and views are kept in their own file, and models are kept in their own file. New file, forms.py. All right. At this point, I'm just going to cruise back over to the platform and just copy the forms that we have. Sorry, got a bunch of things open. There we go. I'm just going to grab this whole code and pull it on in there. All right. So from Django, import forms. That's pretty straightforward. So forms is a Django class. Pre-built, we're just accessing it. We're going to use forms.form from that class. And that allows us to access all of these different pieces. So we're going to create a first name, last name, email, password, and confirm password field. And these guys, these little underscores, get converted to spaces for the naming of the forms. All right, so we named this thing registration form, not register form. And I think at this point we're actually pretty much done. So we should be able to run our code and get it to work. So let's take a run at that. So we're going to run our migrations, just good practice. Python manage pi, run server, and go to localhost. Oops, registration form is not defined, so I probably mistyped something. So let's see where it's not defined at. Index line 5. So let's go ahead and see why it's not defined. So in views.py, look, we tried to access thing, but we hadn't actually gotten it. So we need to say, we've made this forms file now. So we say from .forms import that particular class. So we're going forms. Cool. All right, so there's our server back up and running, and there's our form. Great, let's play around with our form a little bit. So in our index.html, you can specify how it gets laid out as _p, for example. Drink. As table. Drink. As UL. Let's see. Wrong place. Cool. All right, so there's a bunch of different settings that you can set things up with, and I think that's it. So go out and make yourself a form. The next thing we're going to be talking about is getting information back from our form and using this cool isValid strategy.